Hey there, Ashley Francis with Blue Sage Counseling and Wellness, your holistic psychotherapist here in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is the third video of 3 on a series for clinical depression. And today we're going to be talking about the coping skills that you can practice to combat and deal with depression. So we've already talked about the difference between sadness and depression, the signs and symptoms of depression, as well as the negative thought patterns and categories that keep us stuck in general, but also as it pertains to depression. So today we're going to talk about the specific steps that you can take to be able to start feeling joy once again in your life. So the first step is to set goals for daily activity. And anybody that works with me knows that I put a big emphasis on goal setting. In fact, during the first session, which is reserved for the assessment, that's the time where I gather all the information about your history, what's going on, the relationships that you're a part of, your definition of the problem, but we're also focusing on the treatment plan, which is nothing more than goals. Getting really clear on where you are now, where you're headed, what's the means that we're going to take in order to get there, and what is it going to look like once you get there. Every successful person and every person that practices good emotional health has goals. It's something that I do every day. I write it down. I do weekly goals. I do daily goals, and it feels really good to cross those things off. So get in the habit of establishing those goals. Most important thing that I want to emphasize on this one is that those goals need to be realistic and they need to be something that you can stick with. And I hear you. You might be thinking, well, I'm in the midst of a depressive episode. I don't feel like doing any of those things. If I felt like it, then I wouldn't be feeling depressed. So I get it. I hear you. I understand. So the idea here is to make sure that these goals are small, they're measurable, and they're achievable. So it could be something just as simple as getting out of bed in the morning, which it can sound ridiculous. Of course I'm gonna get out of bed in the morning, but that's not always the case. If you're in the throes of a depressive episode, that is quite the feat. That is a success, and that should be celebrated. Could be just taking a shower that day, going for a 10-minute walk, something that is really small, but it's something that's achievable. Because what's the alternative? To lay in bed, to wallow, to feel bad about yourself, and you're not following any goals, you don't have any direction, and it just makes it worse. So the biggest thing is making sure that your goals are measurable, they're realistic, and they're achievable. So the next thing we want to focus on is making a list of the activities that you enjoy. And then the second part of that is actually go do them. And once again, I do understand that your complaint may be similar from the first one. Well, I'm depressed. The whole idea is that I'm not getting any joy. I don't have any motivation or any want to go do these things. Or I may have the want and the desire, but as soon as I go do them, I'm not getting any pleasure out of it, which makes me feel worse. I get it. That's kind of the cycle of how depression works. And I know this from personal experience, but I also know from professional experience. So the idea here is do it anyway. Make sure that, once again, it is realistic, it's doable, it's something that you can achieve easily. So it may not be to the extent that you normally do things versus, for instance, if you're not in a depressive episode, maybe it's a lot easier for you to go hiking. You don't have to pump yourself up. You can get a lot more pleasure out of that. Whereas if you're in a depressive episode, it can feel impossible just to peel yourself up off that bed, strap on your boots, and get out there, get into nature, and start hiking. But the idea is that you do it anyway and get any support that you can. So call friends, call family, seek out professional help on different ways to be able to help get you motivated personally. But the whole idea is to not give up. That's what all of this comes down to. Do not give up, because when you do, depression wins. It is a battle. It is a fight. But the whole idea is that you don't have to be a warrior. You don't have to try to take on the world all at once. We want to make this doable. We want to make it sustainable, and this is how we do it. And so the next thing would be to avoid comparing yourself to how you feel now in a depressive episode versus how you felt before the episode. This is a huge, huge trap. You can get really fixated on, I'm so depressed, I feel awful, why is this happening to me? Something's really wrong with me, I'm defective. So when you start comparing yourself to how you're feeling during the depressive episode to how you felt before the depressive episode, it just makes it worse. It just keeps you in this loop. So one of the best things to do is just be mindful, be present, accept that you're not in a good place right now and that it is going to pass. It is going to pass. It is going to pass. So it might take some extra help to be able to figure out how to help you through it, but nonetheless, it's not permanent, and you just want to avoid comparing yourself. It just makes it worse, basically. So the next thing is to reward yourself for your efforts. You want to give yourself praise. You want to give yourself credit. Again, this might seem, it might sound silly. It might sound unnecessary, but yeah, give yourself that kudos for getting out of bed in the morning. It's give yourself a pat on the back for going to work that day when you feel like it's something, well, I should be doing this anyway. Well, but you're not always depressed and you don't always have the chips against you. So, yeah, it's reward worthy to give yourself credit and kudos for doing the things that you normally would do while you're not in a depressive episode. And give yourself that credit, and then also encourage others to help recognize. You could ask your partner or friends to be able to recognize when you're doing good things for yourself, which might sound a little strange, might feel a little weird, but if you've got people in your life that love you and care about you, they don't want you in this depressive episode any more than you do. So why not incite them to help you and be able to give you that praise? And the last thing is to, if the task seems too difficult, don't despair, break it down into smaller steps. So this kind of goes back to goal setting and the activity enjoyment portion. Yeah, you just want to make sure that the task is, that it's doable, that you may need to break down everyday tasks that you traditionally don't have issues with into smaller steps. You may even want to break it up. Something that I'll do from time to time is I like to exercise in the morning, but if I'm going through a depressive episode, sometimes it's not going to happen. So what I'll do is I'll exercise at midday. So it can make more tasks for myself, but nonetheless, I'm not letting myself off the hook. It's something that's important to me. I can't squeak by. I'm not going to let depression win. So I find another way, and that's a better way for me to, I guess, make sense of how difficult the day is going to be when I first wake up. That, for me, that's breaking this down into smaller pieces and smaller steps. I at least need to get through this morning. I need to be able to get my head around accepting that I'm going to get through this morning first. And then once I've woken up and I have things moving and I've made my goals for the day, then I'm more ready to take on physical activity. So those are some coping skills that we can use to combat depression. There are hundreds, if not thousands more. This is just a starter to give you an idea of some good places to start. So if you are suffering from depression and you need some extra help, there is nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you. Depression is a disease. It is not something that you can help. But what you can do is have better outcomes by practicing better behaviors. So give us a call, 704-778-6141. Send us an email at Ashley, ASHLEY, at bluesagecounselingandwellness.com, or visit us on the web at www.bluesagecounselingandwellness.com. I hope you enjoyed this series, and I hope to see you soon.